This is a One Piece card game channel now. Stick with me, guys. This is like our fifth rebrand, but realistically, I have never been as excited for a card game as I have been for the One Piece TCG. This is not because I was a One Piece fanboy before coming into the game. In fact, quite the opposite. I could care less about the anime and the manga before I ever picked up a One Piece trading card. We had a demo day back in September of 2022. It's the middle of January right now, or about to be the middle of January. And we had a demo day, and there was another player who brought starter decks, proxied up starter decks that we knew we were going to get, later in the year. And we played for 4 or 5 hours that day with the demo decks and with the starter decks, just jamming games, looking up rulings, just hanging out, having a good time. And everybody was talking about, the anime and the manga and stuff like that. And I had not seen it. And so that night on September 3rd, I went home and I started to read One Piece. I subscribed to Viz Premium so that I could download the app and, read on my leisure. And currently I am towards the end of Whole Cake Island. I am on chapter like 860 something, and I very much enjoyed it. And it was all because of this card game, because even though like I do like anime and manga, I was always intimidated by the length of One Piece. I am now a fan. And it was because, I have a love for card games. You guys know this if you've watched the channel for a long time. We've dipped into every card game feasible. Flesh and Blood, Digimon, Dragon Ball. I've been a Magic player forever. Yu-Gi-Oh! I've played a little bit of Pokemon, Cardfight Vanguard. Everything, I have at least tried every single game. Even the offshoots like Keyforge that are not like true TCGs or, whatever. I just like card games. And so the card game getting me invested and interested in this massive property that I now really love has been quite the ride. And I'm really looking forward to following this game as it comes out, because I think it does a lot right, and it has me very excited for the future. And it's the reason why I got into the property itself to begin with, was because the card game was just so damn good. It officially released December 2nd. We're a little over a month past that. And when I say I think this card game does mostly everything perfect, we're going to talk about some things that I think it does really, really right, and one thing that it does wrong that I know Bandai will fix, and we'll get to that. So, card game came out, and it plays like a mix between Digimon and Dragon Ball. If you're unfamiliar with the game, it's definitely worth a shot. It's a more balanced version of Dragon Ball, a more balanced version of Digimon. It also doesn't have all the design flaws, in my opinion, that those card games have. It fixes a lot of things wrong with mana systems, and you don't draw a billion cards like you do in Digimon or Dragon Ball. And so you are more limited in, your answers, which is actually a good thing. It's just been fantastic to play. There are so many good things about this game. We're going to scroll down real quick, and we're going to talk about how first of all, the MSRP per pack is $4.19. We will talk about that in detail further on. But the card game, it has a unique Dawn system, which is the mana system, where the turn 1 player gets 1, turn 2 player gets 2, and every turn, every player gets 2 more. So the starting player does not draw a card going first, and always gets to their odd Dawn first. So they'll go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, then 10, because 10 is the max. And then the even turned player will go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And they also get to draw a card for turn. So it actually is the one game that I've ever seen that incentivizes like being able to go second or have a strategy to go second. You cannot attack on your first turn, even if you're going second, which I think is good. Cards naturally have summoning sickness, which is something that Dragon Ball definitely suffers from. You can go to locals and you can play, as a new player, you can play against these black aggro or red aggro decks that just kill you when you have 1 energy because you couldn't stop it. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the game doesn't have summoning sickness. It doesn't have the problems with the memory system, which is cool from Digimon. But the problem with the memory system is that a core mechanic of the game is to memory choke your opponent. It also has an over-reliance, a lot of decks do, on finding your rookies, and the game punishes you for building more rookies into your deck by making you put your life out before you draw your hand, which means that you are more likely to put more rookies into your life than you are to draw them, and then you take them out of your deck by putting them in your life, which now means you are less likely to draw them for turn. No mulligan also doesn't help that game at all. I don't think the game would need a mulligan if it fits a couple of things like specifically like if you drew before you put your life out, then Digimon would be mostly fine. But it's a big bugaboo for me. Obviously, Magic has Mana Screw. You don't have that in this game. Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have a resource system at all, which is why games are as insane as they are. And look, as somebody who loves Yu-Gi-Oh, the game sucks. This game is balanced. It's skill rewarding. It's not broken, and it's fun. Most importantly. So moving on, one of the big things on why I like this game, I made a little tier list. I think this is like pretty universally, agreed upon by most of the competitive community. This is a competitive tier list for set one of One Piece TCG. So as you can see, we have like 5 tier 1 leaders. You have Zoro, Law, Kid, and Kaido, which are like pretty unanimously, decided upon are very, very good. I put Luffy up here because currently in set 1, there isn't much of a distinction between Zoro and Luffy. And we're seeing Luffy win tournaments. We're seeing Luffy top. It isn't played as much as Zoro is because Zoro is considered to be the best leader in set 2, which is why people are kind of like getting their reps on Zoro now, I guess. But they're essentially the same deck with maybe like 10, maybe 15 cards different between Luffy and Zoro. And essentially they're the same deck, and red is just good. So there are 5 tier 1 leaders. There's really only one tier 1.5 leader, and that's Doflamingo. And that's just simply because while Doflamingo is a very good deck, it does not have answers to stuff like the 8-drop Kaido natively, because Drakehill Mihawk, for some reason, bottom decks a 7 cost or less instead of an 8 cost or less, which would have really helped the deck if it just said, like, honestly, if Mihawk could bottom deck an 8-drop, then Dofi would be tier 1. That's just the difference. Because it is a very good deck. And don't get me wrong, people will win with this deck. It's only like slightly worse than the tier 1 decks. But it is worse, which is why I separate it. And then obviously you have, the only reason why I put Blurple Kaido in tier 2 is because it has won an event. It won like a PPG half case tournament or something of like 50 people. And because it has a top, because like people like it, I put it in tier 2. There are playable leaders, and then there are leaders you probably shouldn't play. For example, this Uta down here, she's fine. But the problem with her is that she's like strictly worse than Zoro because you have to pay for the effect instead of just put the Dawn under Zoro. And so you have these situations where like Nami with the Zoro deck can just give you an additional Dawn, whereas Uta always has to tap that Dawn for the effect. Also, you have to have a vanilla out on the board, and by the time you have the vanilla out on the board, you're getting the same amount of power with your leader for Zoro as you would with the vanilla with Uta, because you're taking like, even if you have a 2-5K on board, or 2 cost 5K, or a 2 cost 4K vanilla on board, and you make it a 6, Zoro is already getting more value if it was the same card, because it's a 5 and now he's a 6. And he gets to use that Dawn, if he wants to, with like Nami on board. And then King is just a bad card. Maybe if it said both players' turns, it would be playable, but it's just not. But realistically, it's a very healthy meta. You have 6 leaders that I think are very advisable that you could take to a competition and do very well with. I think the meta is very balanced. There aren't any like insane leaders that just have like incredibly good or incredibly bad matchups. I think that Kaido is the best deck in the game, barring you draw everything you need. The problem with the deck is that you won't always draw everything you need. You need to find the field spell, and then you need to find like your particular answer to your opponent's board, whether it be the 6-drop king, the 7-drop king, the 5-drop queen, whatever. You have to find the particular answers and not just get like flooded with a bunch of cards you can't counter, or else you'll lose to red and stuff like that. Law does have, I think he's the one tier 1 leader that does inherently have a bad matchup, and it's against Kaido, because the 10-drop Kaido just takes care of this guy's entire deck, and the 7-drop kid is, or 7-drop king is also very good against this deck. So this is the only deck in the game that I think has an inherent bad matchup. The problem is that Law is so good, and he's so good in the hands of good players, that it almost doesn't matter. These are not really in any particular order. I don't say that Zoro's at the top of tier 1. I think these are all on par with each other. If you ask me who the best leader in the game was, I guess I would say Kaido. But again, that just really hinges on being able to see everything. Maybe Kid, Zoro has and then this deck is good. It's just not quite as good. And so I think that the meta is in a really nice spot. You can also play basically all of these leaders down here. You can even play King and Uta. Like, I've seen people win with King, and I've seen people win with Uta at locals. We have people who've posted in the group that they won their locals with King or whatever. And great, if you're a good pilot, you can take a bad deck and still win with it. But realistically, like, the meta's in such a good place in set 1 that like the balance is good, the game mechanics are good. The game is relatively cheap for what it is, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Oh boy, the one thing that this game does not do well is sealed product. Now, take this with a grain of salt because I have been around for Dragon Ball's release and I have been around for Digimon's release. Both of those games were handled the exact same way, barring, albeit with slightly less demand. Dragon Ball Super, you could not find product in set 1, and then in set 2, it was fixed. Digimon, same thing. Set 1, could not find product. Set 2, it was fixed. Now, the same thing happened with One Piece. I don't know what it is with Bandai and short printing their set 1. I don't know if they just don't understand the demand the game is going to have, or if they think that the game is going to die if they print too much of it and then it doesn't sell well or whatever. But for some reason, Bandai is really bad about allocating set 1 to stores and to local and to like big box stores and local game stores and stuff like that. They're just really bad at it. And so as a result, as you can see, Romance Dawn, which is set 1, is selling on the secondary market for over double MSRP. MSRP for the set is around $100 per box. I urge you and beg of you, do not pay for this. Do not do it. Buy singles. Play a deck made of commons and rares, and then buy super rares if you want to. And then, wait until Wave 2 comes out. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to look, and we're going to see if we can sort by rarity. We're going to go super rare here. Sort by rarity, and when you look at the super rares, obviously like the parallels are expensive, which is a good thing, and we'll get to that. But when you look at the most expensive playable cards in the set, you've got cards like Zoro and Law, which are $25 and $20 respectively. The other cards in the set, Boa Hancock's $10. What is another card from set? This Kid is $8. The King is $4. A lot of these other cards are start deck cards, like the Doflamingo and the Luffy. Like these are start deck cards, and you can still get them if you want and play them in your blue and your red decks and your green decks here with the Kid. But realistically, the game is not expensive. Like Zoro is the most expensive card in the game if you're trying to just play the game, and that's $100. That is still cheaper than Flesh and Blood. That is still cheaper than Magic. That is still cheaper than Yu-Gi-Oh! That is still cheaper than Dragon Ball, because this is cheaper than a secret rare, even though Dragon Ball is pretty cheap aside from the secret rares. But it's a problem that this game does not have. So when you look at this game, right, and you look at secret rares, the secret rares for this game, we're going to undo the super rares here. You look at the secret rares in this game, and the playable versions, obviously you have the expensive version, but the playable versions of this deck are $20 and $28. These cards are also not really played right now. You can play Yamato, you can play Shanks. In some cases, the cards are bad. In some cases, the cards are very good. But if you want to play them, you're not going to absolutely break the bank by putting 2 Shanks in your deck. It's not the same as buying a secret rare in Dragon Ball Super. You don't need a $300, $400 secret rare that's a one-of to play your game. And so I think that the game does this really well, where the singles for the card game, like playing the card game, is very cheap. The Dofi deck is like $50, maybe $60, and $40 of that is buying 4 Boa Hancocks. The Eustace Kid deck is basically the cost of the starter decks and then the 8-drop Kid. So the game is very cheap to play, especially if you got in early and you were able to find starter decks at MSRP. MSRP for starter decks is $11.99. Again, don't pay over that. I urge you, obviously, you can do with what you want with your own money. If you want to pay $200 for a booster box, if you want to pay $50 for a star deck, go for it. I'm not your parent. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But it's better for the overall health of the game and better for your wallet if you don't pay over MSRP. Now, if your LGS got screwed and they are getting a bad deal from the distributor and they have to sell at $15 as a starter deck, or if they have to sell $120 a booster box, that's not the end of the world. No big deal. Cut your LGS some slack. Play there, buy there. It's fine. But realistically, this game's price will go down for sealed product. Dragon Ball did it. Digimon did it. You can find sets of the card games, the recent sets, the new sets, for under MSRP for both those games. We buy Bandai product from my local store for like $70 a box, whether it be Digimon or Dragon Ball, and then the starter decks are always sold at MSRP. And now our LGS is fantastic. Shout out to Gamers Alley and Gastonia. It's the best LGS in the country. I truly believe that. But realistically, don't get suckered by this. Bandai will fix the problem. This stuff will fix itself. Bandai will make it correct. So just be patient. Wait a little bit. This stuff will be corrected. That I promise you. But we're going to end up doing One Piece content, most likely a lot on this channel. It is kind of my obsession right now between reading the manga and playing the card game. It's the only thing I want to do. I wake up in the morning on Monday and I go, wow, I wish it was Friday. That way I could go play locals on Friday. Um, and we're trying to get all the stores in the area into it. We have a big group already. Like we're already averaging like, our locals has grown every week. We had 12, we had 16, we had 20 this week. It was just fantastic, and the air around the game, everybody's excited, everybody's having fun, nobody's frustrated. The only thing that's frustrating right now is the sealed product price, and that's just a Bandai thing, and it will come down. So don't worry about it. It's gonna be good. The game's gonna be fantastic. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. We're gonna do some like deck lists. I've been doing pretty well at locals. I have been playing a lot of Dofi, a lot of Kid. I've been messing around with Red a little bit, with Zoro, but we're gonna get some deck lists in there. I'm gonna end up doing like local reports. If we end up getting increasingly more and more and more locals, and we get higher local amounts, if we end up starting to get like 36 people, I'm just gonna start posting tournament winning deck lists and like top 4 deck lists from 36-man events from our locals, because like our play group is already pretty good at the game. There's a lot of really good players out there already. I mean, like we have a dozen guys right now that like are good at the game. And it's very exciting. It's a really cool thing to be a part of, and I'm really excited to be on this ride with you guys. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one.